Let me tell you something no one teaches you growing up. Your worth isn't determined by how much love someone gives you, how many people want you, or how loudly the world claps for you. Your worth lives in you. It is not assigned, it is owned, and owning it, that's a daily practice, a quiet kind of power that doesn't beg for permission. We're raised in a world that teaches women to be likable before they are strong, agreeable before they are authentic. And in the process, we shrink. We apologize for taking up space. We overthink texts, overcompensate in silence, and overextend ourselves for people who wouldn't lift a finger for us. But let's stop right there. Because there's a version of you, a powerful, unapologetic, radiant woman who doesn't beg to be chosen. She chooses herself. She walks like she knows she belongs because she does. She doesn't measure her value based on someone else's treatment of her. That version of you, that's the queen, and it's time to bring her forward. Owning your worth is not arrogance, it's clarity. It's knowing that being available to everyone doesn't make you kind, it makes you exhausted. It's realizing that being understanding doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. The queen in you doesn't flinch when someone pulls away. She doesn't chase, she watches, she observes, she learns, and if someone shows her that they can't value her presence, she makes her absence known. There is power in detachment not because you don't care, but because you care more about your peace, and peace, darling, is expensive. You don't give it away to someone who keeps you guessing. You protect it like a crown. And this crown, it's invisible, but it's real. You don't need someone to validate it. You walk into rooms with it. You walk out of relationships with it still intact. You see, people will treat you how you treat you. If you tolerate breadcrumbs, that's all they'll give. If you accept apologies with no change, you're telling them that the cycle can continue. If you lower your standards every time someone gives you just enough to keep you hanging, you teach them that your boundaries are optional. But when you raise your standards and stick to them, you send a different message. I don't chase, I attract, and if you want access to me, show me consistency, show me integrity, show me effort. It's not about being cold. It's about being clear, clear about what you deserve, clear about what you won't allow, and clear about the fact that your time, energy, and love are not discounts at a clearance sale, they are premium. They are luxury, and luxury doesn't go on sale. Let's also be honest, there will be moments when you forget this. Moments when you wonder if you're asking for too much. Moments when loneliness whispers that it's better to settle than to stand alone. In those moments, remind yourself you are not hard to love, you are not too much, you are simply asking for what is aligned with who you've become, and not everyone is ready for that version of you, and that's okay. Not everyone gets to sit at your table. Some people are lessons, not lifelines. When you truly own your worth, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop playing small so others can feel big. You stop waiting for someone to give you permission to feel seen. You start showing up for yourself not just in the big, dramatic moments, but in the quiet, daily choices. You eat well because your body deserves nourishment. You rest because your mind deserves peace. You say no without guilt because your time deserves respect. You speak truth even when your voice shakes because your story deserves to be heard. And the most beautiful thing, when you carry yourself like a woman who knows what she brings to the table emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract anyone, but because you're finally in alignment with yourself. You radiate confidence. You become the calm in the chaos. You stop trying to prove your worth and instead just embody it. People will notice, some will be inspired, others will be intimidated, and that's none of your concern. Your focus is not to shrink so others feel secure. Your focus is to shine so brightly that the right people find their way to your light. So don't explain your glow. Don't justify your boundaries. Don't apologize for walking away from what doesn't grow you. Be the woman who doesn't need a crown to be a queen because her presence already says it all. Own your worth completely, unapologetically, quietly, powerfully, because once you do, everything and everyone that's not meant for you will fall away. And what's meant for you, it will rise to meet your level. There's a kind of strength the world often underestimates, the strength of silence. We're taught from a young age to speak up, fight back, explain ourselves, defend our position, react when hurt. And yes, sometimes a voice is necessary, but not always. Sometimes the most powerful response you can give is no response at all, because silence, when used with intention, isn't weakness, it's restraint. It's self-mastery, it's power. Silence confuses people. It makes them uncomfortable because we live in a world that thrives on noise, arguments, justifications, shouting matches, screenshots, status updates. People expect drama. They're conditioned to push buttons just to get a rise out of you. And when you don't give them that satisfaction, when you don't react the way they expect, you take control of the narrative. Think about it. When someone disrespects you, betrays you, or tries to provoke you, their power lies in your reaction. The moment you start explaining, pleading, proving your point, trying to show them how wrong they are, you've already given them the upper hand, you've handed them your peace. But when you stay still, when you remain calm and grounded, they're left facing themselves. No mirror, no energy exchange, just their own actions echoing back at them. That's why silence is so unsettling, because it forces people to confront themselves without your energy cushioning the blow. We confuse closure with confrontation. We think if we scream loud enough, cry hard enough, text long enough, the pain will go away. But true closure doesn't come from getting the last word. It comes from realizing you don't need it. You don't need to explain why you're walking away. You don't need to list the reasons. You don't need to show receipts or replay old conversations to prove a point. Your silence is the point. It says, I'm done. It says, you are no longer worth my energy. It says, I'm choosing peace over performance. And that kind of silence, it's heavy, it lingers, it stays in the room long after you've left. It speaks volumes louder than any scream, sharper than any insult. It doesn't shatter glass, it cracks egos. There's something deeply empowering about knowing you can say everything without saying a word. When you reach that point where you don't feel the need to defend your truth, that's when you know you've grown. You no longer need to convince anyone of your value. You're not fighting to be understood. You're simply choosing yourself quietly, consistently, and unapologetically. You don't have to raise your voice to raise your standards. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings or pretend you're unaffected. It means you channel that energy inward. You sit with your pain, you process your disappointment, but you don't give it to the person who caused it. You heal in private, you move in silence, you rise without noise. And when they come back, and they often do, confused by your calm, trying to stir up the chaos again, trying to provoke you back into reaction modes, you stay still, not because you're bitter, but because you've outgrown the need for drama. You've evolved past the cycle of emotional reactivity. You no longer speak just to be heard. You speak only when it serves you, not when it serves someone else's ego. There's a misconception that silence is passive. It isn't, it's deliberate, it's an active decision to withhold access, it's a boundary, it's a message that says, I do not engage where I am not valued. It is not absence, it's presence under control. You're there but not available, you're aware but not involved, and in that distance you reclaim your power. There's dignity in silence, there's grace in choosing not to match someone else's chaos. Not every insult needs a comeback, not every betrayal needs confrontation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let someone feel the weight of your absence. No texts, no tears, no performances. Just stillness, stillness that says, you had access to me, you lost it. Stillness that says, I won't fight to be kept, I walk when I'm not honored. Stillness that says, my peace is more important than proving a point. Because when you choose silence, you're not running away. You're rising above, and you know what's beautiful. Over time, that silence turns into serenity. That distance creates clarity, and you begin to realize how much energy you used to waste trying to be understood by the wrong people. People who weren't even listening, people who didn't deserve your voice, let alone your heart. So the next time someone tries to pull you into chaos, remember, you don't have to react, you don't have to scream. You don't have to prove anything, you just have to know your value, know your peace, know your power, and then let your silence do the talking. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave quietly, no grand good, goodbye, no final message, no warning text or social media post with vague quotes aimed at someone who stopped deserving your energy long ago. Just distance, just silence, just disappearance. We live in a world where everything is performative. People break up and make a show out of it. They walk away but need a round of applause, a reaction, or a final conversation to validate their decision. But let me tell you something, real power doesn't need an announcement. Queens don't explain their exits, they just leave. There's a deep strength in learning to walk away without turning it into a moment. Without making it a spectacle, without waiting to be stopped. You don't need someone to beg for you to stay. You don't need a dramatic ending. All you need is a clear decision: this no longer serves me. And from that moment, you simply begin to move differently. When you decide to cut someone off emotionally, mentally, spiritually, do it with intention, not emotion, not in the heat of an argument. Not with impulsive messages or harsh words meant to hurt. Do it in peace. Let the silence be the closure. Let your absence be the consequence. That's when it hits the hardest. Because the people who are used to you always explaining yourself, always forgiving, always holding the door open, they expect a warning. They expect you to say, "I'm done," just like you did before. And still stayed, but when you just don't reply, when you stop reaching out, when you no longer make space for them in your mind or life, that's when the shift happens. That's when they feel it, and maybe they'll notice right away, or maybe it'll take them days, weeks, even months. But eventually they'll feel your absence. They'll scroll past something that reminds them of you. They'll check their phone and realize it's been too quiet, and that's when they'll start wondering, not because you told them you were leaving, but because you already left. This isn't about ghosting. This is about knowing when to protect your peace without making it a performance. You're not disappearing to punish anyone. You're simply done extending grace to someone who never honored it. You're done negotiating with people who only love you when it's convenient for them. You're done announcing your pain to someone who wasn't listening the first 10 times. You don't need an audience to validate your healing. You don't need to post about your decision to detach. You don't even need to get your final word in. In fact, the more energy you put into explaining why you're cutting someone off, the more power you're still giving them. True freedom is when you no longer need to be understood by the person you're walking away from. There's also something incredibly mature about realizing that not everyone deserves access to you even if they once had it. People change, you grow, and sometimes you simply outgrow the connection. The conversations become draining, the energy feels off, the respect starts fading, and instead of waiting for it to get worse, you leave with grace. Quietly, cleanly, you don't block them out of anger, you simply stop engaging. You don't send a message to tell them they hurt you, you let the distance speak for itself. You don't wait for them to come back because you've already let go. And if they do come back, if they suddenly remember what they had and try to return, you don't hold resentment, but you also don't reopen that door, because you're not cutting people off just to prove a point. You're doing it because you respect yourself too much to stay where you are not seen, not valued, not loved properly. And if someone couldn't treat you right the first time, they don't deserve a second chance at your light. Walking away quietly isn't weakness, it's discipline. It means you've mastered the art of self-respect. It means you trust yourself enough to know that closure doesn't come from them. It comes from the choice you made to choose you. You're not running, you're not hiding, you're not afraid, you're just done explaining, done repeating yourself, done begging someone to treat you like a priority when they kept choosing you as an option. So the next time your soul tells you it's time to let go, listen. Don't wait for a perfect moment. Don't wait for one more conversation. Don't wait for them to finally change. Just do it quietly, completely. Not every chapter needs a loud ending. Sometimes you just put the book down and walk away. Because when you stop announcing the cutoff and start embodying it, that's when they finally understand what they lost. But by then, you've already moved on. There comes a point in your life when you stop looking outward for validation and start turning inward for fulfillment. That's when everything changes. That's when you begin to understand what it truly means to pour into yourself. Not in a selfish way, but in a sacred way, a way that says, I am responsible for my own joy, my own healing, my own peace. That realization is the beginning of real power. So often we're taught that love means giving our time, our attention, our energy, our hearts. And yes, love is about giving, but not at the cost of yourself. Not to the point where you're empty, exhausted, and disconnected from your own needs. You can't pour from a cup that's always drained. You can't love others properly when you haven't even met your own soul halfway. Pouring into yourself means choosing you every single day, not just when life falls apart, not just when someone breaks your heart, but as a daily practice. It's about becoming the source of your own validation. It's deciding that your worth isn't measured by how much others need you, or how much you do for them, or how quickly you bounce back after being hurt. It's measured by how well you care for your own spirit, how well you show up for yourself when no one's watching. This journey starts quietly. Maybe it's waking up early just to sit with your thoughts. Maybe it's journaling all the things you were too afraid to say out loud. Maybe it's finally choosing a boundary you should have set years ago. It can be as small as drinking more water or as big as leaving a relationship that makes you feel less than. But every step says the same thing, I matter to me. And here's the truth, when you start to pour into yourself, it changes how you show up in the world. You begin to glow differently. You're no longer moved by the opinions of others. You stop chasing people who can't meet you where you are. You stop explaining why you require the things you do, because your life, your peace, your energy are not up for negotiation. You start feeding your mind with inspiration, your body with care, and your heart with honesty. You give yourself the same love you once gave away too freely. You become your own sanctuary, and the people who are only drawn to your brokenness, they'll fade away, but the ones who value your wholeness, they'll find you and they'll meet you on the level you've fought to rise to. This isn't about becoming hardened or cold. It's about becoming rooted, grounded, so secure in who you are that the world can't shake it, so full of self-respect that being alone never feels like a punishment, it feels like peace, so in love with your growth that you no longer feel the urge to prove your worth to anyone who doesn't already see it. You'll still feel things deeply, you'll still love fiercely, but you'll do it with boundaries. You'll stop sacrificing your well-being for temporary connection. You'll stop dimming your light for people who can't handle your brilliance. You'll realize that anyone who feels threatened by your self-worth was never meant to stay in your life long term. Pouring into yourself also means forgiveness, not for them, for you, forgiving yourself for what you tolerated, for all the times you abandoned your intuition just to keep someone else comfortable, for the moments you chose silence when your soul was screaming. That was survival. Now you're in a season of rebirth. Now is the time to reclaim your energy. Pull it back from all the places and people you gave it to carelessly. Pour it back into your passions, your body, your dreams. Stop asking others to see you clearly. See yourself. Speak to yourself kindly. Touch your own heart with softness. Give yourself the patience you've so freely given to people who didn't return it. Healing isn't just a process, it's an act of self-loyalty. A declaration that says, I will not abandon myself ever again. You become more powerful when you love yourself fully, not in theory, not as an aesthetic, but in your everyday choices. You become magnetic when you know your value and don't hesitate to protect it. You become unstoppable when you're no longer waiting for someone to save you, because you've already started saving yourself. And one day, someone will look at you and see all of that work, the glow, the peace, the resilience. They'll see the way you carry yourself, not with arrogance but with quiet grace, and they'll wonder how you did it, how you became this version of you. And you'll smile not because you owe them an answer, but because you'll know. You did it by pouring into yourself every single day until you overflowed. We grow up believing closure is something we have to chase, that it's this final conversation, this perfect ending where everything gets explained and the pain makes sense, that once we get it we'll be free. But here's the truth that hits when you finally grow into your strength. Closure isn't always given. Sometimes it's something you create for yourself, quietly, privately, without permission, without their participation. Without a scene, you don't need someone to apologize to let go. You don't need a conversation to understand why they hurt you. You don't need the explanation that never came. You don't need a full circle moment where the other person suddenly becomes emotionally aware and accountable. Because sometimes they won't, and waiting for it keeps you stuck. It keeps you tethered to pain that no longer deserves a place in your life. Closure doesn't come from them, it comes from peace, from choosing to stop reliving the wound. From deciding that even if you never get the apology, the truth, the reason you still get to heal, you still get to move forward, you still get to rewrite your story. Peace is when you stop checking your phone for a message that won't come. Peace is when you unfollow without resentment, when you stop needing to prove that you are good to them, when you stop looking backward hoping the past will suddenly make sense. Peace is when you finally say, I may never understand why they did what they did, and that's okay. Because what are we really asking for when we chase closure? Most of the time, it's not answers, it's validation. It's the hope that maybe they'll see our pain and care enough to make it right. But let's be honest, if they truly cared the way we needed them to, they wouldn't have caused the kind of damage that left us craving closure in the first place. So why give them the final word over your healing? There's power in walking away without a dramatic ending, in choosing your peace over one last conversation, in letting the unanswered questions stay unanswered, in releasing the grip of the past and saying, I'm done trying to make this hurt less. I'm just going to stop carrying it altogether. That's when you take your power back, not when they finally explain, but when you no longer need them to. And yes, it's hard. It's hard to let go of people who never gave you the decency of closure. It's hard to move on from relationships that ended with silence or dishonesty. But what's harder is keeping your life on pause, hoping that one day you'll get what you're owed. Because the truth is, some people won't give you closure not because they can't, but because it protects their ego not to. They avoid accountability by avoiding the conversation, and chasing that is a waste of your light. Instead, give yourself what they wouldn't. Sit with the pain not to drown in it, but to understand it, to outgrow it, to rise from it. Closure isn't a moment, it's a process. It's the day you finally stop talking about them in every conversation. It's when you can remember them without hurting. It's when you see the red flags you once romanticized and know you'll never tolerate them again. That's healing, that's self-respect, that's peace, and when peace finds you, it doesn't feel loud. It doesn't feel like fireworks or a revelation. It feels like stillness, like breathing deeply after holding your breath for too long. It feels like no longer needing to relive the story just to justify your pain. It feels like deciding that your life is too beautiful, too rich with potential, to keep circling the same wound. Let that be enough. Let your growth be the closure. Let your silence be the goodbye. Let your peace speak for you, not because you didn't have more to say, but because you no longer needed to say it. You get to move forward without answers. You get to forgive without an apology. You get to choose joy, not because the past was fair, but because the future deserves your presence. You are allowed to heal on your own terms. You're not weak because you wanted closure, you're human. But you're powerful the moment you realize that not getting it doesn't make your pain any less valid, and not needing it doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise, it makes you strong. So no, you don't need one last message, one last call, or one last sit down to tie it all together. Some stories end without neat endings, some chapters close without punctuation. And you can still walk away whole. Let peace be your closure. Let your healing be enough, and trust this, one day you'll look back and be so glad you didn't wait for a final word to start living again. Because you were always the ending you needed. There is a moment in every woman's life when she stops shrinking, when she stops softening her no to sound polite, when she stops guessing herself because she's afraid of being too much. When she finally decides that her peace, her space, her standards are non-negotiable, that's when she begins to let her boundaries be unapologetic. We're taught to be nice before we're taught to be firm. to be accommodating before we're taught to be clear. We're conditioned to be understanding even when we're being disrespected. We're taught that being liked is more important than being respected, and that kind of thinking, it drains you, it erodes your spirit. It convinces you to keep the door open for people who walk in and out like your worth is a revolving door. But here's the truth: you don't owe anyone access to you. Not because they're family, not because they're persistent, not because they didn't mean to hurt you. Your energy is sacred, your time is valuable. Your heart is not a playground for people who haven't learned how to treat others with care. Setting boundaries isn't rude, it's responsible. When you decide to draw a line, draw it in ink, not in pencil, not in sand. Make it clear, make it strong, and most importantly, don't apologize for it. You are not mean for protecting your peace. You are not difficult for refusing to tolerate disrespect. You are not selfish for putting yourself first after a lifetime of putting yourself last. Some people will try to make you feel guilty when you enforce your boundaries. Let them. That discomfort they feel, that's their entitlement reacting to your evolution. They got used to the version of you who overextended, who overgave, who always said yes, even when it hurt. But that version of you is gone. And in her place stands someone who knows her worth, her limits, her truth. Not everyone will like this version of you. Not everyone will celebrate your self-respect, but let them go. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to be authentic, to protect the life you're building with intention, to be deeply rooted in your values. That means saying no when you mean no. Walking away when it no longer feels right, and refusing to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Boundaries don't require an audience, they don't require approval, they're for you. For your peace of mind, for your emotional clarity, for the life you're crafting where you are the priority, not an afterthought. You get to decide who has access to you, who gets your time, who hears your story. Who sits at your table. You get to change your mind when the energy shifts. You get to say, this no longer feels safe for me, and walk away without explaining every detail. And no, you don't have to be angry to set a boundary. You don't have to be cold. You just have to be clear. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is to say, this is my limit. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. Boundaries are how you teach people to treat you. And if someone gets offended by your boundary, they were benefiting from your lack of one. Let that sink in. The people who truly respect you will honor your boundaries without making you feel like you have to beg for them to understand. The right people don't make you feel guilty for growing. They see your strength and stand beside it, not in opposition to it. And as you begin to live this way, you'll notice something beautiful happens. Your life becomes lighter. You'll have fewer but deeper relationships, less drama, more peace, less overthinking, more self-trust, because your energy will no longer be scattered in 100 directions. It will be centered, grounded. Focused, you will no longer live in reaction to others, you'll live in response to yourself. You'll listen to your body, your intuition, your heart, and you'll act accordingly, even if it disappoints someone else. Because the truth is, every time you abandon yourself to make someone else comfortable, you teach yourself that your needs don't matter, and that's a lesson you must now unlearn. So start now, be bold. Be firm, say no, say not anymore. Say I'm unavailable for anything that drains me, and say it without guilt, without softness, without a long explanation that tries to make the other person feel better about your choice. You're not here to make everyone happy. You're here to be whole, to be at peace, to be powerful in your truth. So let your boundaries be unapologetic and watch your life transform.